Hello again. So I'm back to talk here today about something that's not Destiny related, but it's actually with PlayStation. The PlayStation Plus Overhaul that's coming, I think, next month, or at least it's coming. I think it's actually coming this or next week. I think Asia, and then it's sort of rolling out in different territories. And I think for us in the UK or EU, it's going to be coming in about a month, which is obviously. This whole thing has been it was leaked late last year, and it was announced a few weeks ago, and now, just this last week, we've got kind of a little bit more information about what's actually included, in terms of the games and the content, and obviously, as many people know, this is kind of PlayStation's, what most people will be calling their answer to Xbox's Game Pass, and it pretty much is that in terms of the style, at least, the kind of things you can expect. And I've seen kind of mixed opinions on it. But I think, I'll sort of get into what's included. I think I'll start off by saying I think this is actually, I'm surprised by what's here, and I think it's better than what I expected. We'll start off, essentially, there's three tiers. There's obviously, I think the base one is called, which is, Essential, that's one. I don't know why, I literally wrote these down, and then I can't find it. So you've got Essential, which is the base tier. You've got Extra, which is the middle tier, and then you've got Premium, which is the third, obviously the one the tier that's going to cost the most. And obviously, in the Premium tier, you're going to get everything that you get in the sort of previous tiers. And so that the Essential tier is basically PS Plus as we know it now. It's kind of, from what they've said, nothing's changing. It's going to be exactly the same. Extra has a collection of, they've said, I don't know if they reiterated it in this article, but they said before, quote, up to 400 PS4 and PS5 games. And then on the premium tier, you get, on top of everything else, you get up to 300 classic titles across PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSP, and that's in addition to game trials, and I think that's it. And they also mentioned something about Ubisoft Plus. They've got another sort of separate service that's coming as part of the extra tier as well, but I'll get to that in a bit. And so they said up to those number of games. I'm assuming that just refers to the region you're in. I don't think it means like at any given time, or like over time they're going to put that to 400. I'm hoping it's going to launch with, basically hundreds of games. And obviously we've got a sort of a selection of them in this article that they put out earlier this week, at least at the time of recording. And I'm hoping there's a good number of classic games. I think classic games is the thing I'm most interested in. But it's funny because that's where I feel like this is the sort of least, like, it's underwhelming, I think, from what they've shown of classic games. But in terms of the PS4, PS5 games, there's a lot of surprising games in there. And I'll just read through. I'll sort of go through the sort of list they've got. I'm not going to go through the entire list. You can check the description. I'll throw the link in there. But there's a lot of big games in here. You've got things like Bloodborne, Days Gone. You've got Death Stranding, the PS4 version, and then the Director's Cut on PS5. One of the biggest ones that really surprised me was Demon's Souls, the remake of it by Bluepoint, and that, the PS5 remake, that's in there. Ghost of Tsushima, the Director's Cut on PS4 and PS5's there. God of War. There's some of these games are actually on the PS Plus collection. I don't know if that's staying, but whatever. They're in this as well. You've got Infamous Second Son and First Light. You've got Horizon Zero Dawn. You've got Gravity Rush 1 and 2. You've got Knack. There's Loco Roco 1 and 2 remastered. I think they announced this before. We got Spider-Man, the first game, and Miles Morales. It's interesting they haven't put Spider-Man Remastered in there, actually. I'm just looking at that now. They only say Spider-Man on PS4, but Miles Morales is PS4 and 5, so I guess you get the PS4 version of Spider-Man, you don't get the remastered version. The PS5 remaster. One that I'm interested in is Patapon 1 and 2 remastered. I actually have 2 remastered, but I haven't got 1, so I guess if I didn't want to buy it outright, I could jump up to the middle tier and get that. You got Last Guardian here, there's Last of Us Remastered, and Left Behind. It's weird why they put Left Behind there as a separate thing, because it's included in the remastered version. I'm noticing all this stuff now, I'm looking through it. Another interesting one here, you've got Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, which is obviously 1, 2, and 3. Then you've got Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and Uncharted The Lost Legacy, but they're the PS4 versions. The PS5 versions, there is a game trial for that, but that's not actually part of this collection, which I'm guessing it's because it's newer. They don't want to throw it in there just yet, but I also feel like it's a remaster. I don't know why. But that's in terms of first-party games. In terms of third-party games, again, you've got quite notable things. You've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla on PS4 and PS5, Batman Arkham Knight, Celeste, Control Ultimate Edition, Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, The Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition. Again, some of these, as I said, they're in the PS Plus collection as well. So like, I don't know if this is carrying across. I guess this is what's so weird about this. I think we'll know more obviously once it launches. You got Guardians of the Galaxy on PS4 and 5. Mortal Kombat 11 is there. Outer Wilds, Red Dead Redemption 2, Resident Evil. I assume that's the remake of the original Resident Evil. Soul Calibur 6, The Artful Escape, The Crew 2, and then a weird one is the Division 1. I don't know why it's the first one, not the second, but oh well. That's just how they've done it. But obviously, that's part of the Ubisoft Plus. So I'll get into that now. Might as well. There's a Ubisoft Plus. They've got Ubisoft Plus, which is the subscription service, which I believe is on PC and I think Stadia right now. And they announced, I think, earlier in the year that it was coming to Xbox. And then with this announcement, they've announced that it's coming to PlayStation as well at some point this year. But they're also having a curated selection of games in a Ubisoft Plus Classics sort of subscription. I don't know if you can buy that on its own, and I don't think it's going to Xbox, but it's at least going to be something that's part of the PS Plus extra and premium tiers, so that's second and third tier. And that's going to have, I think there's a 27 games, but I could be misquoting them there, so I'm just going to say between 20 and 30 games, Ubisoft games, I assume, from PS4 and 5. As I said, Assassin's Creed Valhalla being there is pretty good. Well, pretty good in terms of in terms of its it's a big game. I didn't love Valhalla personally, so for me, I mean, I've played it, but it's a big game and it's still surprising to throw that in there. And then we get into the classic games. I might as well read most of these out since they're pretty short lists. Now, this isn't the full list as well. I should have said that at the beginning. This, from what we've been told, this is a selection of the games. Now, I'm hoping this isn't a selection as in like the biggest games there. I'm hoping this is a selection that's kind of a few, but we're going to get a pretty extensive list when it launches, but we'll find out. But in their classic games catalog from first-party studios on PS1 and PSP, you've got Ape Escape, Hot Shots Golf, IQ Intelligent Cube, Jumping Flash, and Siphon Filter from PS1, and they've got Superstardust Portable as the only PSP game there. I hope there are more coming there. And from third-party games, you've got Mr. Driller, Tekken 2, Worms World Party, and Worms Armageddon. Again, they're all PS1 games. And then obviously there's a few games that got brought forward from PS2 and PS3 as remasters that they're also throwing in here. So from first party, you've got Ape Escape 2, Ark the Lad, Twilight of the Spirits. It's an interesting name. You got Dark Cloud 1 and 2, Fantavision, Hot Shots Tennis. Then you've got Jak and Daxter 1, 2, 3, and X, which is the racing game. You got Rogue Galaxy, Siren, and Wild Arms 3, and that's first party. And then for third party, you've got Bioshock Remastered, Borderlands The Handsome Collection, Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition, Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning, and Lego Harry Potter Collection. That's actually, I mean, it's pretty. That second section is pretty impressive. There's a lot of games in there. But again, they're already existing remasters. They're not like they're actually being made for this. So they're existing things from PS3 and PS2 that they've sort of brought forward, and they're just kind of throwing them in here. There's no mention of Ratchet and Clank in this though, and that was one I was kind of like hoping for. Ratchet and Clank is a bit. I was hoping the original trilogy and the Gladiator or Deadlocked in America. I hope they were coming forward, but doesn't seem like it. And then in terms of PS3, obviously, unfortunately, as I'll get into in a bit, the PS3 games are only available via streaming, which is a shame. But you've got Crash from first party. You've got Crash Commando, Demon Souls. I thought that was interesting that they've thrown in Demon Souls. The sort of the PS3 version and the PS5 version. Obviously, it's a shame you can't natively download that PS3 version. But still, I guess you can compare the two if you wanted to. Echo Chrome, Hot Shots Golf, Out of Bounds, and World Invitational. Ico, Infamous 1 and 2, and Festival of Blood. Loco Roco, Coco Reco, I guess is how you pronounce that, I think. Motorstorm Apocalypse and Motorstorm RC. Puppeteer, Rain. And you've got Ratchet and Clank, Quest for Booty, A Crack in Time, and Into the Nexus. Resistance 3, Super Stardust HD, Tokyo Jungle, and When Vikings Attack. Again, first party list. What's again weird about this is with Ratchet and Clank is that they've got Quest for Booty, A Crack in Time, and Into the Nexus, but they haven't gone and put Tools of Destruction on there yet. But I think these are games that were available as digital purchases, but Tools of Destruction was never part of that. So they've kind of I was hoping that they would throw in Tools of Destruction here just to kind of round off that collection, but it's a shame. Again, these are, you have to stream these games, so I really hope they get something sorted with that soon. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Third party partners, you've got Azura's Wrath, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, DMC HD collection, which is cool again, but he's streaming it. Actually, I think that might already be on PS Now. So I think someone said, I haven't checked myself, but someone said these are actually already on PS Now. So kind of doesn't seem like they're doing too much here with PS3 games. You've also got Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, Fear, Lost Planet 2, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, and Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. So they're third-party games. And just to kind of round off this, they've obviously talked about the time-limited game trials that you get for if you're on that highest tier, the premium tier. They also call it the deluxe tier in this. I don't know why the deluxe naming has suddenly come up, but they say premium / deluxe. Maybe it's possible that it's called deluxe in another region. I'm just thinking about that now. So that's actually, yeah, that's maybe why they're calling it that. We'll find out. But essentially, that gives you access to trials for games, for select games, they say for 2 hours for most games. They show an image of Horizon Forbidden West and this is a 3-hour trial. So obviously all your progress carries across, and same with trophies and things like that. The 2 games that they're showing here with game trials at launch is the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection on PS5 and Horizon Forbidden West on PS4 and PS5. And for third-party partners, you've got Cyberpunk 2077 on PS5, Farming Simulator 22 on PS4 and 5, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands on PS4 and 5, and WWE 2K22 on PS4 and PS5. And then they go on to say that there are going to be new games added regularly. Obviously, the Essential tier, we're still going to get the monthly games that we usually get at the beginning of the month. But they say about the Extra and Premium, what's this again? So they say Premium / Deluxe. There's going to be a refresh around the middle of the month with new games for the Extra and Premium plans. And they say the number of games refreshed will vary per month. I'm hoping this is going to be, again, I hope this isn't just going to be PS4 and PS5 games. I really, to me, this whole thing, the biggest part that I look at all this from is that I look at it for what it can do for game preservation, particularly for those older games that aren't accessible on PS4 and 5, either because they're not purchasable, or because they don't run, or whatever the issue is. So I'm hoping the classic games list is going to be the one that's updated with more over time, because I feel like they've got some pretty notable PS4 and PS5 games here, and if they're saying this is a select version of the list, and we're going to get, again, they said up to 400 PS4 and PS5 games, and they said up to 300 PS1, 2, 3, and PSP games, so from what they've got here, I feel like that's a significant, that's a lot more. I mean, I don't know how many games there are here. I think there's probably, 60 games here? 60 or 70 games, so that's only potentially a tenth of what we're going to get, hopefully. So yeah, there's some surprising. I said Demon's Souls on PS5 and there was pretty impressive. I think that does mean though that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and I guess Spider-Man Remastered are going to be the only 2 big PS5 only games. And actually, well, sorry, Spider-Man Remastered obviously technically is a PS4 game because it's just a remaster. So I think Rift Apart is going to be the only, full new PS5 only game that is not on this service. It said Returnal's on there as well, so it's pretty impressive. I was surprised when I was seeing those in there. So it's interesting that they're in there. They also mention a few other sort of details which I think are pretty good. They said that for those classic games, that some of them are going to see increased resolutions and frame rates, which should just be a given. They've also said that some of the PS1 and PSP games will also feature a user interface that will allow you to save at any point and to rewind gameplay. Again, useful things. I think that's become a standard for emulators of old games. So that's cool. And one of the most surprising parts about this to me was that they said that they say PS1 and PSP games. I guess it's because not many PS2 games have been ported to a digital store before, so I guess it makes sense that they're the main ones they call out here. It's also a shame that Vita hasn't got anything in this, so I don't know what's up with Vita, if they're gonna sort that out. Again, it would be nice to get some of those games like Uncharted Golden Abyss off there, but they'd have to be reworked because of the touch controls and all the, whatever, so a bit more difficult there, I guess. But but yeah, so they say about the PS1 and PSP games, they said for some of those that return, if you already own them digitally, you can actually download them free of charge without needing the subscription, which I thought was really surprising to see in this. I was genuinely surprised by that, and that it's weird why they say some. I don't know why you would need to rebuy them, but I guess that could be license. That could be like a third party doesn't want you to just get it again for free. It could be something like that. Um, and they've also said that, quote, some of the titles will also be available for individual purchase. Which again, I don't know why it's some of them. I don't know if that's Sony being like, oh, first party wise, you're going to get all of them purchasable individually, and third parties are not fully on board with that. But I don't really know why. I was hoping that again, game preservation. I think if people want to have the option to buy them again, just let it. Like even if it costs, like £12, £20, it shouldn't really cost that much. Like we shouldn't be looking at 60, £70 for PS1 games, but hopefully a large number of them are actually on there. So I've spoken about the game trials, and then the Ubisoft Plus Classics is obviously that service. I think Ubisoft, they announced they sort of had their own article covering that as well. And as I said, Ubisoft Plus is also coming to PS5. Well, I assume it's PS5, obviously, definitely, but I don't know about PS4. But I guess both of them probably. It would make sense. So yeah, to talk about thoughts of this, I kind of rambled on. I mean, I sort of put loads of thoughts as I was talking, but to me, the biggest issue with this service is the lack of a native PS3 back compat. Because I feel like that is the thing that can round this off, and then if they have a consistent number of games being added over time and purchasable, individually, I think that really makes this service pretty appealing. And I will say that in terms of the PS4 and PS5 games, while PlayStation, while we're not looking at the same level of back compat that Xbox has, I think this is a pretty good starting point, particularly for the PS4 and 5 games. And it's interesting to see this is going to be their kind of response to Game Pass in a way. And a lot of people, including myself, didn't think it was going to live up to the same level of Game Pass. And sure, it's not necessarily going to have day one game, like, first party games, but doesn't mean there's not many day one third party games. Shadow Warrior 3 was a day one PS Now game, which I don't know if that was a test. It was kind of a bit of a random, unexpected, sort of an announcement that they made. So I do think it's interesting. I think this is all interesting in terms of the quality of what we're getting here and the number of games, and I do believe that this is it's a significant attempt at actually kind of PlayStation having their own kind of Game Pass, and they do call it a game catalog. So I assume you've got Game Pass on Xbox and you've got Game Catalog on PlayStation. So yeah, I'm pretty. Like I said, I'm impressed about the PS3 native back compat. I have heard that is actually something that is being worked on, but it's probably likely a few years away. And I sort of found out that the reason why is because because of the different ways that developers would, create workarounds around these different problems that the cell processor of the PS3, created or caused. Sorry. Each kind of developer and even of each game has its own kind of workarounds. So unlike when you're emulating PS2 games and maybe occasionally making these different changes, it sounds like you kind of have to create a different emulator and a different way to run each PS3 game, or at least each developer's game. And obviously that then creates, that creates problems and the number of different emulators you have to create. Hopefully they're able to get it working soon. I do think that if it's working for a significant number of games, particularly on the first party side, they should just launch this and just say that they're going to be working on it over time. I wish they were more forward, sort of, I don't say forward thinking, but, a bit more, talking about the future of this, and of course we haven't even got it yet, so of course that still might sort of come down the line, but there's more here than I expected, and I just want them to keep doing that, and I think, as I said, I think Xbox is winning in that regard, and I think it's cool that there's competition, and it's a way that it's something that PlayStation have to push back on, Obviously, PlayStation still have the first-party games, and Xbox just had their 2 first-party games pushed into next year, so they're currently looking at no first-party games this year, so, if God of War's coming out this year, and potentially a Last of Us remake, which is heavily rumoured, PlayStation seem like they are doing not too bad in that regard, but we'll see. One other thing I was curious about is about trophy support. Now, we did find out from a tweet, in a tweet from Ben Studio, obviously made Days Gone, that their game Siphon Filter is going to have trophies, and it is even going to have a platinum trophy as well. But that doesn't really confirm that all games, all kind of classic games are going to have trophies added. Uh, but I believe there was a patent for adding trophies into classic games a while back, so hopefully this is something that we can expect. Again, it's that iteration. It's like even if it doesn't release with trophies, it would be cool if like in a few months or a month afterwards or however long, it goes like, oh, I don't know, Ape Escape suddenly now has we've added trophies. I just think those kind of things are like, that's what's going to keep this service alive. And there's a lot of games and a lot of different trophies and a lot of different things that they can do with this. And Game Pass has obviously proven to be quite successful. And I do believe that if PlayStation or Sony, whatever, hit this in good stride with keeping it updated over time and adding to it and supporting it while still having their first party titles, I think this is arguably they're gonna. I don't want to say it's not going to be the same value. I don't think as Game Pass, but when you think about Sony's first party games, or sorry, I keep saying Sony. When you think about PlayStation's first party games, there's a lot of notable games in there and a lot of games that people really like, and so throwing them in a service like this, particularly if you're new to PlayStation, this is almost like a no-brainer. Like, you just get on that and you get access to this wide breadth of critically acclaimed games just right from the get-go, kind of thing. And you of course can stream them, and you can, well, they said the streaming's not available for every single game, but you can stream some of them, and then you can download all the PS3 games. Obviously, yeah, of course you still got to stream the PS3 games, but I don't know. I look at this and I think it's looking pretty good, and I think overall, if they do keep it updated, as I said, it can rival Game Pass, and I didn't think I'd be saying that. Uh, I know some people would think that's a ridiculous claim, but it's like, just because Xbox has day one games that are first party doesn't mean it's immediately better, because we know that whenever they've had first party games, they're not always the most amazing games of all time. Now, I don't agree with all the critical reception for PlayStation games either. They've obviously had Forza, which did really well. I thought it was really cool that a racing game did as well as it did. But then you had Halo Infinite, which I think had a good campaign from what I can tell from what again, critical acclaim and from what the reception was. But then the multiplayer has just, I've heard nothing but complaints about it and just various issues. So it seems like I mean, I've played it. I thought it was fun. I'm not used to Halo, but I had a good time with it. Didn't play it tons, but I still think it's fun. And that was back in season 1, I think, or so was it beginning? I think near the beginning of the year or late last year or something. But yeah, I don't think Xbox have that same like caliber of releases now. Obviously, when they get things like Starfield and Redfall, and is it called Redfall? I bet it's not called Redfall, but I've just made that name up. But whatever. The two games that were delayed. When you think about those, it is possible that they can have, almost like Sony first party quality games and releasing pretty often, and if they get a good cadence, that's where they start becoming a bit more lethal. But until then, I just don't. Even with Game Pass, I think so. If PlayStation can nail this right and have a good cadence, because again, like if Return on Demon Souls are already in there, who's to say in like 4 or 5 months that Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection and what do you call it? Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and is going to end up in there, and maybe they'll have like if Factions for The Last of Us comes out, who's to say that they won't throw that in there or something? Like, there's all these different things. I'm just like, there's a real. I mean, it's the possibilities are, I think, are fairly exciting. Of course, I set my eyes on the sort of the preservation of games. I set my eyes on that, because to me that's one of the most important aspects that a lot of developers and publishers don't seem to think about. We've just heard that Embracer have just acquired Crystal Dynamics and Eidos, I think, was it Eidos? And one of Square Enix, one of their studios, I don't know, they've acquired a few studios from them, as well as all their IP like Tomb Raider, Legacy of Kain, Thief, Deus Ex, and they've been talking about how they have a lot of, they're interested in not only sequels, but remasters, remakes, and just this whole idea of, like, preserving games and keeping them all up to date, I think is really cool, and so, something, I'd love to see the Tomb Raider games brought forward from PS1, PS2, and have them, like, ported, and again, that's what this service can do, or this service can at least lead the charge on, kind of thing, and I think it's pretty exciting if they add decent games every month, I mean, it's cool getting a couple of games free a month on PS Plus, but having like several added, I think is really cool. And notable games as well. Like, the fact is that the fact that Demon Souls is on here and Returnal, you wouldn't see them on like the monthly games list. we pretty much never see huge games like that until a few years later. And Demon's Souls has only been out for a year and a half, and Returnal's been out for about a year now. And as I said, I'm kind of surprised Ratchet Clank's on there, but I almost wouldn't be surprised if it's because they're trying to wait till they get some more first-party games out. Then they'll rotate that in there, and I think that's cool. I think that's cool that you buy it at launch if you want to play it at launch, and then if not, a year or so later, suddenly it shows up on the service, and I think that's cool, and it keeps things fresh. And I think the PS Plus collection was a cool step there. But yeah, again, what I was saying about trophies, I think it'd be cool to see more trophies support for all these games. But yeah, no, I think overall, I'm interested in seeing how the service rolls out, and I hope it all works and everything. And I hope there's a lot of surprises for games that are on there. I do believe there's a problem with some games though. Like certain games had HD versions on PS3 because, for example, God of War, the HD versions of 1 and 2, and Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta from PSP, they have HD versions that you can play on PS3, and I believe they're both on PS now. The problem is that you have to stream PS3 games, so there isn't any way to actually natively download and play those God of War games on PS4 and 5. And I don't know, are they going to go back to the PS2 versions and bring those versions for? Are they going to give you the choice whether you want to play the PS2 version natively or the PS3 version? And I think they should, but it's like, are they going to? Uh, and they haven't even announced any, I don't think they've announced any kind of improvements to their streaming service or anything like that, so there's still a few questions, and the thing is, there's so many games and so many different versions of games that there's gonna be a lot to deal with. But I just this is a point where Sony can and should be a little bit more, you know, talk about it kind of thing. Tell everyone what you're working on, and do just have these like, oh, suddenly we're remastering Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2 this month, and next month we'll do 3 and Gladiator, like stuff like that. And I think this, I'm talking like in the optimistic side, and it's possible that in the long run this service is just going to be really not that great. But there's things in here that surprise me, like the honoring. I don't know why it's not honoring all digital purchases, but at least honoring purchases, having them available like individually to purchase, having the increased frame rates and resolutions, and then the save states and rewinding gameplay. There's things like that I just didn't expect, and I was reading it, and several times throughout that article they put out, that said I'll leave in the description, I was shocked. I was like, oh wow, really? Like you're actually doing that? And I really was, impressed, and certainly more than I had expected. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. This video's been longer, but I guess I think it makes sense to be longer. I think there's so much potential here, and there's so much to talk about. Oh, and something else I should mention that I've just noticed in my notes. I hope that if games are going to be rotated in, I hope they're not rotated out, and if they are, I hope they stay available for individual purchase on the store. I imagine games will rotate out the service because they do on Game Pass and they did on PS Now. But I hope that they have those available to buy on their own, because I just don't understand. Like, it's kind of weird. It's like, oh, we're adding this game this month, and then like 6 months later, it's like gone off the service, and you can't buy it again. It's like, that would be weird. And plus, I don't know how that would work if you have it installed on your system. Like, yeah, questions like that. Hopefully they'll stay on the service for a long time, and if they do end up being removed off the service, hopefully they'll be available on the store. I think it'd be great to have all these games available on on PS4 and 5. I think that's some really cool potential here, and I really do think that there's a lot. I'm looking forward to this. I mean, as I said, I hope a lot of them are available individually, because I don't know if I want to commit to like the long-term subscription thing. But if you have trophy support and you are committed to adding a lot of classic games consistently, I think there's a lot of value in this, particularly for a new player of PlayStation. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. So lots to look forward to, I think, and considering the expectations I think many had, this is looking better, I think. Even if I think the classic games is where they need to improve. From the selection they've given, there's some notable ones in there, but I'm slightly concerned that the classic games are going to be kind of a bit underwhelming. But we'll see. Hopefully not, and particularly over time, I hope that does get added to with some notable games. Like I said, I was kind of expecting Ratchet and Clank 1, 2, 3, and Gladiator on here, and they're not, which is a shame, but we'll see how it all pans out. But anyway, I'll try and round this up in about 30 minutes. Hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for listening. If you have, leave a comment in the description saying something like, I don't know, Ratchet. Just put Ratchet in the comment, as in Ratchet, like Ratchet, not rat shit, like, Ratchet. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, and thanks for listening, and have a good one. Ciao, ciao, ciao.